in her own words, she said, I was doing my level best to help her. And I believe she genuinely was. She genuinely, after hearing the sob stories, thought, let me see if I can get this person on the straight and narrow and help them out. And I reckon she did go down there. She has put a lot of effort into trying to help Fiona out, which obviously backfired on her.
All right, we are back again with Gavin Stone, and we are continuing our coverage on Baby Reindeer. This whole project has been one of those oddball situations where I think, you know what, this is a really interesting interview. Let me go cover this with my friend Gavin. And then it sprawls into a much larger thing. So right now, we are at 3 videos on the Fiona Harvey interview with Piers Morgan, an additional video where we looked a little bit into Richard Gadd. He is not as out there, and there's not quite as much to get on him per se, but we did do a video on him and also looked at the Netflix executive. But now we have another interview that has come about with Laura Wray. Now, Laura Wray is an individual who claims that Fiona Harvey stalked her prior to Richard Gadd. And unlike Richard Gadd, who has never named Fiona Harvey in public, as far as I know, Laura Wray has been very clear that this is my stalker. This is Fiona Harvey. So again, we're joined by Gavin Stone. How are you doing today, Gavin?
I'm doing, apart from this spot on my head, actually, I'm not sure if it's a spot or a mosquito bite. Really bad timing, but yeah. So other than that, everything's peachy.
All right. And just so folks don't know who you are, I thought I'd bring up this little bit here. You made the Global Gurus list.
I did. Again, this year I'm ranked number 9 in the world, apparently.
And that is for what category?
So that's for body language expert, and I'm also qualified in a number of other disciplines like psychology and statement analysis and so much more.
Awesome. Thought it'd be cool to bring this up because this isn't your first year on the list either.
No.
You've been climbing the list, right?
Yeah. The first year I started at something like 28, and I've been getting up there, and now I'm ranked at number 9 and getting closer to the top the more I do.
All right, so we are with a global guru number 9, and covering. Well, this is going to be a bit of a mix. Okay, Gavin, what I've been trying to do with this series, and I think you've seen it too, is not just look at body language, not just look at statement analysis, but to try to look at other pieces of information that are coming forth as well. Mm-hmm. Because while obviously I like body language, I like statement analysis, I really like facts. Mm-hmm. I really like, shall we say, things that prove out without a doubt something has or has not occurred. Don't need body language or statement analysis if you have a screenshot.
Exactly.
Sometimes. So what we're going to do is start off the show with kind of wrapping up a little bit or covering a little bit of Fiona Harvey that we've come to discover later. The little minor part about her and an iPhone. And she was asked by Piers Morgan about her phone, and she was really squirrely, is the best way I could describe it in this segment. And let's go ahead and check this out.
What do you have? What technology do you use?
Right. What technology do I use? A very, very old smartphone just now because the other one packed up a week before moving. That's it.
Because they're all sent from an iPhone.
Yes. So
but they believe it wasn't actually an iPhone ever being used.
Meaning what?
Meaning that someone was hiding the fact that they were actually not using it. They were pretending it was from an iPhone.
I don't really understand that.
Well, people can mask where they're sending stuff from.
Okay, right. I'm not Technology Whiz Kid of the Year. I wasn't doing that either.
I'm going to start with the end of this. I want to know if you picked up that very, very last word.
I wasn't doing that either.
Because what happens is he explains to her, somebody was using, a technology to mask where it was coming from, to make it look like it was coming from an iPhone. And she went, no, that wasn't how I was doing it. I wasn't doing that either.
That was a fabulous catch there, Gavin. And, well, it's actually been proven out to, how do we put it? Been proven out to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Would you look at that?
So she did have an extra phone, and she wasn't masking where it was coming from an Android. It was sent directly from an iPhone by the looks of it.
It certainly seems to be. And it kind of was a very confusing exchange to me overall. Like, was it an iPhone, not an iPhone, or is it disguised? Honestly, I feel like Piers Morgan read more into it and confused the heck out of her, because she was just kind of going, I don't know, about the disguising of the phone. It could have been found out or anything else. So, yeah.
So, which backs up what we speculated in one of the videos where we said it stands a chance. She just had a separate phone, and that was why she was confident that, nothing could be tracked back to her, because it was just a completely different phone, maybe even in a different name or unregistered, elsewhere that she was using.
Yeah. And in all fairness, she didn't say that her old smartphone right now isn't an iPhone.
There is that.
That could be her same phone right now. Who knows? So anyways, a weird exchange. Wanted to cover that. And now we're going to pivot into Laura Wray. And again, Laura Wray came many years before Richard Gadd. I think this goes all the way back into the 90s. And apparently Laura Wray hired Fiona Harvey to work for her, and things did not work out. And there were articles about Laura Wray, as a matter of fact, even before Fiona Harvey went on to Piers Morgan. You could see that this Daily Mail article was out, and I believe that was before the Fiona Harvey interview. I get confused on what order these went in, but I believe that they all kind of overlapped each other. But what's interesting is you found out a little bit more information that could be beneficial to Fiona Harvey. This article I find very interesting. A barmaid who worked with Richard Gadd at the Holly Arms said that Fiona Harvey was targeted as a joke at the club.
Yeah, I mean, quite easily in a male-dominated environment, especially when there's a lot of drink involved, allegedly drug taking as well, and all manner of things. You've got what starts off sometimes as banter, ends up becoming a running joke, and ultimately becomes almost abuse. We are looking at rather a well-established pub, and I have mentioned this before. I mean, it's been used by the likes of Kate Moss, Amy Winehouse, Liam Gallagher. It's been used by some of the biggest names, in the business, as it were. It doesn't need to worry about shedding customers, so it's not bothered as a business if it's going to upset the odd patron here and there. Especially if it keeps others coming back. So yeah, I can quite easily see this as being the case. Like I say, starts off as a bit of a joke, a bit of a laugh between the staff, and then gets out of hand and escalates from there.
Yeah, and I only want to point this out because I feel like there are potentially multiple villains in this story, or multiple parties who all have culpability. Not everybody has the same level of culpability, but everybody has a degree of culpability in this situation.
Yeah, for sure.
And so if there's something that falls in the favor of Fiona Harvey, like if she was teased or manipulated into a situation, and she may already have issues of some kind, and being, led along, that's kind of mean. And, I could see where things could sometimes escalate out of hand. But I did want to point that out. Another thing that has come up, this is about Laura Wray. Now, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I want to lay groundwork and acknowledge that there are different views of different people. And Laura Wray was married to an MP. Is that a member of parliament?
Yeah.
By the name of Jimmy Ray. And he passed away. And after he passed away, there was a giant dispute with the family over his £1 million will. Mm-hmm. And apparently Laura was claiming that the child, who I guess is disabled, is penniless. So I don't know if he cut her out of the will or what was going on. I guess the widow's claiming that the disabled son was written out of the will, but there's some contentions there. And there's another argument here, or another article. This is going all the way back to 98. And I like it when the formatting is all messed up, but it is essentially saying, Ray is welcome to her. 2 men in the life of Labour MP's lover launched damaging portrayal of a high-spending manipulator. So, very interesting situation. We're steeped in some kinds of controversy with yet another character. Again, I'm not trying to smear anybody, say anything. It's just there seems to be more complexity going on with this situation with everybody. We have the protagonist of the Baby Reindeer series, who Richard Gadd, led a bit of a libertine lifestyle. It's the best way I can put it. I believe he has professed to doing drugs. How do I say? Working himself over her pictures at times. His behavior has not been just a baby reindeer, if you will. Not quite as innocent as a baby reindeer. Let me put it that way. And then you have Fiona, who, you could feel like there's something going on here. I do think that there's some truth in here, but there's a question how much truth there is, and that's part of the issue we're having. And then last of all, we have Laura, and as we can see that there's dispute with family. I never want to get too deep into that because anytime you have money and you have family and you have estates, you're going to have different opinions. And as per before, I encourage or invite any of them, if you don't like what we're coming up with, please come on and correct us, and same for the audience. But let's stop burying the lead, and we're going to get into the clips.
Laura, thank you very much for coming down from Scotland for this.
Thank you.
I can only imagine that this is something that you hoped had disappeared from your life a long time ago, but because of the Netflix series and how incredibly successful it's been, one of the most watched series in living memory, it's brought it all back to your door and your family and what you say you went through at the hands of Fiona Harvey. So first of all, when did you know Netflix were doing a series?
Well, I found out about 5 weeks ago. The Mail on Sunday contacted me and asked me, had I seen Baby Reindeer? And I had no idea what they were talking about. So they suggested I go and watch an episode of it, which I did. And then I spoke to them. And I couldn't believe it. From the very beginning, it was obvious it was the same woman. It was Fiona Harvey. You know, the actress who does a very good job, sounds like her, looks like her, mimicked her to a T.
Folks, that is going to come up later. Remember what she just said there at the end about sounds like her, looks like her, mimicked her to a T. Later on in this coverage, that's going to be extremely important because there's a lawsuit flying around, and that actually feeds into it. So what else did you find with this? Is this a bit of a baseline, or did you see anything in there really?
Yep, this was really useful for me to be able to establish a baseline for her in many ways. Number one, you'll see that she's naturally got a high blink rate. So we've talked about this before. Blink rate is generally a sign of either nervousness or discomfort. It's a stress signal. So somebody, the more they blink and the faster they blink, normally the higher the stress. I know people who blink a lot and very fast as a standard baseline. She's obviously one of them. So you can still look for blink rate increases, but know that naturally she has that in place already. The second thing is she starts off the sentence with the word well. And I know you've studied statement analysis, so I know you know a little bit about this. And normally when somebody starts a statement, a sentence with the word well or the word so, you would look into it and turn around and go, that's hiding some truth, or there's possibly some signs of deception there. However, I watched the whole video. I made a point of it. I made a point of it several times. This is, again, baseline for her. She does it several times. So, again, it doesn't mean anything. There's nothing in it. And if you've got somebody who has a little bit of knowledge and just jumps on it and thinks that one red flag alone is enough to go on, then they're going to misread it. This is how she normally starts a lot of her sentences. You'll also notice the head movements, which this is really, really important now, because this is going to set a bit of a standard for us. When she's talking, you'll see these angled head movements where she's angling to the left or she's nodding forward with what she's saying to reinforce her statements. There's a very good reason she's doing this, and that's because she's had Botox. You'll see there's no frowns, there's no eyebrow movement, there's no look for approval, and the reason being is because she can't do it, because she's had Botox. That is something that I picked up on, and again, it's something that is going to help. We've had this question before: if somebody's had Botox, can you still do body language reading on them? Well, the answer is quite simply yes. You just look for different things. So, little hint out there for you. If you're having Botox, Dysport is much, much better. It softens the tissue. I don't use it myself. I'm naturally this good looking, but it still allows you to have a little bit of movement without the paralysis caused by Botox. So so there you go. You can see there's a little bit of baseline to go off there. The blink rate of her does increase also just when she says the name Fiona Harvey. So just by saying the name, that in itself is showing a stressor. So, and when she says the word, it sounds like her, it looks like her, she mimics her to a T. You can see that affirming head nod as she's doing it. So again, that's kind of giving you the
congruency.
Yeah, exactly. And she's got open hands, open fingers with it. So again, you'll notice when people get stressed, they tend to curl their fingers in. And the more stress they get, the more it becomes more like a fist. When people are open and relaxed, they literally are open. So if their fingers are open, they are. So there you go. What you said so far allows us to establish what's normal for her.
And uses the same phrases which they found on the real Fiona Harvey's Twitter account.
Yes, I mean, I have a file full of papers which are letters from her, emails, faxes and so forth, and it's all identical.
She seems to be definitely reinforcing what she's saying. The congruency seems to be there. Like, she probably does have letters and emails and faxes.
I'd say she certainly does. There was a very, very slight head shake at the end, which is very difficult to pick up on. I'm not sure what it's for. It's when she was saying the word faxes. I don't know why, but it was just there. And then at the very end of her speaking, there was also a little bit of lip compression, which leads me to believe that she's got more to say on this matter, but is holding back at the moment.
Two things. The faxes and the head shake. Faxes are starting to go into old tech finally. It seemed like they'd never die, but could that be her coming up with a word?
I'm not sure. It was just something that I spotted that wasn't kind of in place with the rest of everything. Everything else she was saying all seemed very congruent, but it was just a very slight head shake. And again, I don't know. It might be something going on in her own mind or thoughts where she's maybe thinking, should I say that because I don't actually have the originals? I just have records of them or photocopies. So there could be any number of things going on there. It doesn't necessarily mean she's lying or being deceptive. it just shows that there's something happening there that if I was in the studio at that time, if I was Piers Morgan, I'd want to ask and dig a little bit deeper around that and find out why. So as to the lip compression, like I say, I think she's probably got a whole lot more to say in relation to that, I've no doubt. And that's probably why the lip compression, because that's generally a sign of holding back an opinion or more data.
Right. And this is also extremely early in the interview. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, if she was married to a member of parliament, she's probably upper society slightly, or
to a degree, yeah. I mean, she's not married to him anymore. They did get divorced and remain friends. He died a few years ago of bowel cancer, so obviously the will was contested afterwards. But she is still friends with a lot of people. Some of the people at her firm have gone on to be judges and barristers. So yeah, we are dealing with like the.
But what I'm saying is, in that society, they might withhold a little bit, yeah. Especially early in the interview. You don't just lay in and say, this complete crazy, blah, blah, blah. You might, kind of hold back, and then let it roll out over time. I don't know. I'm asking you, your culture.
That would make perfect sense, and obviously at the same time, she is trying to be very careful with the kind of image she portrays, because she doesn't want to come across as somebody who's been on Piers Morgan's show just to have a rant. She doesn't want to look like that kind of, gossiping housewife kind of person, I should imagine. She just wants to, relay the facts.
It was a clerk job, really.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a trainee solicitor's not quite a clerk, but I mean, they're a very junior member of your staff.
I meant kind of office clerk sort of level of stuff.
Well, office clerks can often have a lot more experience in certain things. She was very much trainee solicitor role. So, she was there to learn from us rather than the other way around.
Explanation. Kind of like she wanted to make it clear that, no, she wasn't even qualified to be a clerk.
Mm-hmm. The reason I put this in as well is because, I mean, Piers here was trying to say, she was just she wasn't like a lawyer level, she was at the clerk level. And I wanted to say here that she's not afraid to express, what was really going. She's not just going to go with the flow and just go, yeah. She was just a clerk. She wants to, she's not afraid of relaying the facts. She's not afraid of correcting the record and, and putting things right. So, it is something that I wanted to get that over, so that I don't want anybody to think that she's just somebody who's going to be a nodding dog and say yes and agree to everything. She's going to say it as it is. And if something's not right, she's going to put it right. So
there's some precision with her.
Yeah.
And how did she do?
She was dreadful. I mean, I wasn't there all the time, but essentially she was rude to staff. She shouted at people. She was inappropriate with a male member of staff. She tried to follow a male member of staff home. I mean, all sorts of things happened. She threw a book across the office and hit somebody with it.
Okay, now we're going to get into a very controversial part of body language, I have a feeling. But her eye tracking. Mm-hmm. She's looking down to her bottom left. Mm-hmm. Now, have you watched the full video, and is that her coming from memory, or is that from her making something up? And I know you have to establish over time where people consistently go, because everybody has their own spot.
That's right, yeah. Which is why this has become so controversial, is because there was once a kind of map drawn as an example, and everybody used that map as a template instead of an example. Eye pattern movements are something that are reliable, and everybody goes in their different directions. So it's not always up and left is making something up, and it's not always this way and that way means one thing or another. It's different for each and every person. So yes, you do have to establish where they go to. From what I can see, it looks like that is a normal indication of where she would go to access memories, and that kind of is congruent with everything that we've seen so far, as well as all of the actions, the head nod, speech rate, tone, volume, everything is completely unchanged. So there's no excitement here. There's no kind of, and she did this, let me tell you she did that. And there's no clunky speech. There's none of that. Everything is congruent. this is the ideal opportunity for her. If she wanted to embellish, she could write quite easily at this particular point. She's got a free hand here to say, tell us what happened, and say what she wants. She's said what has happened from her memory and what she can recall, and that's what I'm seeing at this particular point. And I've got no reason to believe that there's any reason, or no reason to believe that anything's happened other than what she said.
Okay. And I just wanted to clarify that. I did want to put it out there about I guess it's eye accessing cues.
Yeah.
It appears that is her actually pulling from memory. And later on, if we were to hear something and she looked another direction, then that might be a flag. Yeah. But it appears that down left is her reaching back in time.
She said, well, I owe him for a car repair. And she said, so I need a sub. And I said, well, I'm disappointed you keep asking for subs because we've told you we're not going to do that.
What's a sub? Is that a loan?
So it's an advance on your wages. So if you were to hypothetically get paid £5,000 a month, you can ask to sub £500, and then your wages at the end of the month, they'll give you £500 then and there, and then it'd be taken off your wage at the end of the month. You get £4,000.
Subtract. Okay. So subtract from my wage and give it to me now. Okay.
Basically, yeah.
I said, how much is it? She said, £250. And she said she'd borrowed the money from her auntie, but when she went into the envelope, it wasn't enough money in it. And she said she had no money to live till the end of the month. So I said to her, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you £250 out of my own personal money. Go and pay the man and then come up and talk to me. So she came up and talked to me. I said, keep the other £230 to keep yourself going. I said, and she then started to tell me about various financial problems she had, which I won't go into. But I volunteered to go and speak to her bank to try and help her out. I was trying my level best to give this person a helping hand. And I went down, I spoke to her bank about a week later, smoothed everything out for her. And when I came back to the office, she started saying to me, oh, I've been on the phone all afternoon to the Law Society to find out what will happen if I go bankrupt.
Only thing I see in there is when she said smoothed everything out for her, gulp. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to speculate. Could that be a gulp of she put her reputation at risk by getting involved and smoothing something out?
This is something that is possible. It's going to lead into the couple of things that are on the way, because she does that at 12 minutes and 45 seconds into the interview, and she could be kind of going through a little bit of a dry mouth phase with this. She's done a lot of talking. She hasn't touched a drop of the water on the glass in front of her at that particular point. So it could just be the fact that her mouth is drying out a bit through nerves. However, I will also say here that there is this, and we've mentioned it before when we've talked about gulps and we've talked about people gulping and the reasons why, but that's generally added to a cluster of other tells and behaviours that can show deception. This here, there is no other cluster. So it on its own might not mean anything. I can talk to you and gulp and it won't mean a thing, which I just did. And then just after that, there is what I initially thought was an up and right eye movement, but it's actually not. If anybody's not looking and paying close attention, it's an up and right head movement, and their eyes just move slightly to the side. So it's not actually an up and right. So, because I thought, that's not congruent with what we were talking about earlier with the eye accessing cues, where she goes the other way. It's a head movement, so it can be very easily missed and misconceived. And then finally, 30 minutes and 21 seconds into the interview, she also gives this little look of contempt at the end of when she's saying I spoke to her bank manager and smooth things out, and you can see that kind of one-sided contemptuous smile, as it were. So for anybody who wants to go back and pause that at that point later on, they'll be able to see for themselves.
You see, and I guess that's where I'm kind of going with this. I didn't feel like there was any deception at all in that statement.
None at all.
And by showing contempt, that's not deception. That's actually saying she found this person contemptuous.
Yeah.
It was her emotion toward the person, but that's not lying or deceiving. That's just an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And the gulp speculation was part of it too, because it didn't feel deceptive. It felt that's my high science term, because I'm not a global guru, folks. So I'll say things like it felt odd or whatever and not worry about it. But it felt to me as if she was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
With that.
And I would say a lot of that is down to the fact that, like she said, in her own words, she said, I was doing my level best to help her. And I believe she genuinely was. She genuinely, after hearing the sob stories, thought, let me see if I can get this person on the straight and narrow and help them out. And I reckon she did go down there. She had put a lot of effort into trying to help Fiona out, which obviously backfired on her. All of this, by the way, also plays into something that Chase Hughes said when there's a bit where he mentioned the fact that she was quite unhappy about the concept of the free drink and being made out to be some kind of a pauper, and was quite angry about that kind of whole, people perceiving her that way, which would obviously
Fiona.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. So this would play into the whole kind of the reason behind it. If she was having a lot of financial troubles, this is obviously her go-to kind of default for being angry and annoyed about kind of covering up her financial mess that she's in.
And she did the same thing with a couple of other members of staff. One of my conveyancing staff was trying to show her how to do some kind of clause in a conveyance.
That lip lick, was more of a tongue jot, and that is a distaste for a particular person or action or memory of what they did, which is obviously thinking back to what happened. So what that again shows is that this is a genuine memory of an event that happened that she has a distaste for. This is something that humans do from birth when they don't like the taste of something. You ever given a baby food that they don't like the taste of? Not only do they spit it out, the whole tongue comes out afterwards to kind of shovel it and make sure the rest of it's gone. So it's ingrained to us when we get something. When I say we don't like the taste of it, it can literally be a mental taste that you are kind of trying to push away, as it were. So probably not the best explanation in the world, but I'm sure people get the gist. That's what you're doing.
So there'd been a few incidents I was aware of, but by the time I got back, there was more and more being reported to me. Staff members in tears because of the way she'd spoken to them.
Pretty believable. I mean, I'm having no problem with her narrative.
Yeah. Now, what you'll see at the end of this clip is this kind of what could be easily mistaken for Jupiter's delight. There's almost like a little bit of a smile, but it's not a smile. And it's also not contempt because it's symmetrical. What this is, it's almost like a sympathetic smile, if you want to call it that. Not for Fiona Harvey, but for the staff that have been put through. Yeah, like that. Exactly. Yeah. Kind of like poor staff that have had to suffer at this. So again, there are people that could pick up on that and turn around and say, oh, you can see contempt, or you can see Jupiter's delight and that she's telling lies and that kind of thing. That's not the case in this instance, and it could be very easily mistaken. I'm pretty damn certain that is a sympathetic face towards the staff that she's employed.
Awesome. This is actually refreshing, Gavin. So far, we're going through this saying this person's coming off as really honest, and here are cues that can be misinterpreted versus the whole, there's something there. I mean, it's just kind of refreshing. We're just like, it seems, this is congruent. I think the last time we had that was when we covered Rihanna.
I think, It's been a while.
It's rare. It seems like we're usually covering people and saying, what's that about? Now, that could change, but Laura's doing well so far. Laura's doing well.
What kind of threats?
I'll get you. You're not going to get away with this. I'll get Jimmy Ray. All that sort of stuff. I know that sounds a bit vague, but the way it was said was in a very threatening manner.
And how many was she leaving on a daily basis?
Well, the answer phone would be filled up.
How many was that, roughly?
I'm not sure how many messages, but she would rant on. It would take probably about an hour's worth of call.
Every day?
Every day. And then when we amalgamated with the other firms, again, she did the same thing, not necessarily every day by that point. She blew a bit hot and cold, but it was pretty persistent for a couple of years. Also,
years?
Years. She did this for nearly 5 years.
And again, I'm reminded what you said earlier about her precision.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, not every day.
Yeah.
She'd blow hot and cold. Then she undersold the years. She said couple of years. And they said years. And she said, yeah, nearly 5 years, which wouldn't actually be a couple. That would be a few or several even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah,
she downplayed it.
Oh, definitely. So this is somebody, like we said, when it comes to precision, this is something that she likes to get over the facts. She likes to look at things as kind of, she's not blowing things up out of proportion. She's not embellishing here in any way. She could have turned around and said, yes, it was every single day. And in the end, we just ignored them, or we changed the number, or whatever the case may be. Or she actually made a point of saying, yes, it was solid for quite some time. Then it started to die down. Then it wasn't so bad, but it did go on. And again, when, she said a couple of years, again, like you say, it was actually 5 overall. So this is really, really great because it shows, again, she's got this opportunity to make things look a lot worse than they really are. And she's not just jumping on it and saying, well, let's milk this for all it's worth. She's sticking to what happened, when it happened, and how it happened. In fact, like you say, downplaying it, if anything.
Yeah, and also a more precision. She started with the answering machine, and how many messages? Oh, I don't know, but it took like an hour to play them, and that makes sense. That instead of trying to make up a number, she seems to be very good about not embellishing.
Yeah. Which is great, rather than turning around and saying, oh, there was hundreds or whatever. Then, because she probably does know it's an hour, because she's probably gotten into work for 8 o'clock in the morning or whenever she starts, realised there's loads of messages, press play, and at 9:10 or something going, wow, they're still going, or look, they've only just ended and it's 9:10 in the morning. We've spent an hour listening to this. So she probably does know time-wise how long it takes to play them all and how long the machine holds, but maybe not.
I was going to say, I bet you it was... depending on, this is in the 90s, Gavin. In the 90s, a lot of the answering machines had an actual physical cassette.
That's right. Yeah.
And if the cassette was an hour, then we know if it was filled is an hour.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she would actually have to listen to all of them because she's running a law firm.
Exactly.
So she has to, there might be another message in there that she has to get. So that would be pretty frustrating, actually. I kind of feel bad for her.
Yeah, because even if she had to hire somebody just to sit through the messages and say, "Tell me when there's not one off Fiona," when we get, if we get one of an actual customer, that again is coming out of her pocket, would have been an absolute nightmare for her to deal with. So
I went to Strathclyde University, and who's the first person I see when I get to the university to start doing a couple of classes but her. I couldn't believe it, because at that point it had gone a bit quiet. And there she was. And from then on, she followed me around the university.
So what was this about?
So that was just that tongue jut again. I also want to mention the fact that yet again she has an opportunity to really, really oversell here. She could turn around and say, this affected my study time at the university. It made my life hell when I was there. There's any number of things that she could really play this out to make this look and sound a lot worse. And what she did is she said she followed me around the university. She stood in my way. She created problems for me. She's really downplaying the whole thing, and again, there's that tongue jut at the end of it all when she's talking about it, which just shows that there's just that distaste for what was happening at the time.
She said she never had any legal proceedings or restraining orders against her, but you say, and you provided documentary evidence of this, that there was an interim interdict against her. Now, just very simply explain what that is.
Well, in Scotland at the time, there was no procedure for harassment type cases. The only thing you could use was this procedure for interdict, which is when you want to try and get the court to stop someone from doing something that you fear they may do. So that's the purpose of an interdict. Now, because often the circumstances can be acute, you can apply for an interim interdict, which means there's an initial hearing before a judge who decides whether, on the basis of the information, it's appropriate to grant what is essentially a restraining order, an interim interdict. So that was granted.
And we've seen the documents to support that, both the claim and the fact that it was granted.
Okay. Now, this is something I believe we're leading into a little bit of stuff that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is about whether or not Fiona Harvey was convicted, served time, had any legal judgments against her, and it's been a very confusing line.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what Fiona actually said about the interdiction. It's in two parts.
That's completely untrue. Very, very defamatory to me. Very career damaging. And I wanted to rebut that completely on this show. I'm not a stalker. I've not been to jail. I've not got injunctions, interdicts. This is just complete nonsense. But it's, I mean, you'll know yourself, if you're charged with a criminal offence, it will go fine, bigger fine, whatever. Very few people go to jail.
Well, you'd have a police record
nowadays.
Yeah.
That was a very carefully phrased thing she did there. I've not got any injunctions, interdicts, but she didn't say not interdicts. She just kind of threw the word into the rest of the sentence, almost like a word salad. Or am I misinterpreting?
No. I mean, you're right with the fact that she's thrown that in really quickly. You know, she's, I've not been to jail. I've not got any injunctions, interdicts, anything like that. It's complete nonsense. So you've got this whole kind of, she said, I've not been to jail. That was congruent. You know, she says there's no injunctions. That was congruent. Interdicts. There was no pretext there. She didn't say
not interdicts.
Exactly.
No interdicts. She just
yeah.
And then said it's all nonsense, which
exactly.
is not. It's a soft denial again.
It is, yeah. So again, that for me was a little red flag, which I just thought was definitely worth bringing up. And you'll see in the next clip in a moment as well. We're going to understand why we know she definitely received it.
Oh, well, actually, it's very funny because I dug up more on from Fiona's interview with Piers, and she does talk about it more.
Who then served an interim interdict to stop you from contacting the lawyer or her politician husband. Daily Record reported that.
She messed up, I know, and I've still to speak to David about that, the author of that Daily Record article. She didn't. She messed up because I went into the Court of Session, the High Court in Edinburgh, to get countrywide interdicts, an interdict and an injunction in Scotland and England because I was going to move to London anyway. She mucked up.
Sorry, you went into court to get them yourself?
Yes, but there was
who?
no need against Laura Walker and Ginny Ray.
But she said one was served on you.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
An interim
we have checked this out.
And again, there would be a public record of
yeah,
that.
absolutely. And
you're saying that it was never served?
What we think, she served the initial documents, and then
she did?
No. She served the initial documents and then there was no hearing. It wasn't minuted for a hearing. I said I would defend, but she mucked that up too. She didn't fill up a second initial document. She then didn't minute for decree in absence. So there is no interim interdict.
Some really crazy word parsing going on there, right?
Yeah. So she's using the old military triple B method, which is baffle them with bull. And it's and what it is she's trying to get out of saying that there was this interim interdict served upon her by saying, well, it was never really completed. So I'll summarize it really, really quickly for you. You can't just get an injunction or an interdict immediately. But what you can do is you can get what they call an interim interdict, which the judge grants, and that says this is to act as an interdict until we can decide whether or not there needs to be an actual full interdict or injunction put in place. Now, that is valid for a year and a day. Now, basically, if in that year and a day nothing then further happens, then there's no reason or need to go to the next stage, so you wouldn't need to do any more. If, on the other hand, something continues or the lawsuit continues, then you can then continue to move to a full interdict or injunction. So basically what she's saying is, yes, you served the first one, but she didn't serve the second one, so therefore there was no full interdict, and she's trying to use the BBB.
And she's trying to say current, too. So like using there is no interdict. Not there was no interdict, but there is no interdict. So it's like, if what you're saying is true, it's like a status, I'm guessing. The interdict is a particular status. It's good for a year. If it's renewed, then it keeps that same status, kind of like a restraining order, right? Yeah.
So if you can leave it there for a year and a day, and if by a year and a day, if there's nothing else comes of it, and you don't need to go back to court, then that's it. It just expires. And with that expiration, there wouldn't be necessarily a clean slate of it being completely erased, but it wouldn't be something that you could turn around and say, well, I've had an injunction which would be recorded against me from this particular person. So I think she's relying on that more so than the fact that, that there was anything actually there in the first place, if that makes sense.
Let's see how we did on that when we covered it. It was rebutting Fiona now. She did say, I am not a stalker. I have not been to jail. I've not got injunctions. It's complete nonsense. So what you're describing then, notice here, as I'm watching this back, because we watched the video, we also were going to articles. This article misquoted her.
Completely on this show. I'm not a stalker. I've not been to jail. I've not got injunctions, interdicts. This is just complete nonsense. But
they missed the word interdicts, like we were just talking about. Remember?
That's right, yeah.
And then it goes, it is complete nonsense. So that caused, I think, a little confusion for you and me, and that's my fault. I told this, but I think it's very interesting that that word disappeared from this article covering the interview. We'll continue.
Yeah.
Would make her statement accurate?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, she could say, I've not got injunctions. That's pretty much true. It was an interim interdict. So it's like there's so many things.
She is a lawyer.
Yeah, she's going to know. She's going to know this kind of where the technicalities lie, as it were.
Well, there we go. I think we're holding up pretty consistent here.
Yeah. So, like you say, I find it really interesting that the word interdict has been removed from that where the quote has been put and talked about jail, talked about injunctions, and missed the only thing that is the one that is what she's been told that was in place for her. Very interesting.
Which shows, by the way, that verbal method she used is effective.
Did the trick.
Because she threw it as an aside almost, and that caused people to just bypass it. I'm not going to blame the reporter completely, but they did miss it. And maybe that was part of a manipulation she was doing.
Yeah. So there you go. That's why we get professionals to come on to, and people like Eric look at this, with laser focus.
Well, at least Gavin. I'm not here.
You never had to because she disappeared.
I never had to because she disappeared.
And what was that feeling like when she disappeared?
It was relief, absolute relief. I mean, I had enough on my plate. Jimmy had a stroke about a year after all this. I was looking after Frankie, who's severely handicapped. Nobody knew at the time exactly what was wrong.
Do you think Jimmy's health was affected adversely by all the stress of this or not?
Jimmy was a pretty resilient guy, so no, I don't think so. I think he was more worried about me and about Frankie than he was about her harming.
All right, what do we have there?
So what we've got there is, again, everything's congruent, but yet again, she had the opportunity presented to her to be able to jump on the fact that he said, look, do you think Jimmy's health was adversely affected by this? She could have easily turned around and said, oh, yeah, that's what made things really
I think it killed him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It exacerbated the situation. She could have really made the severity of this so much higher. She chose not to, because you can see she's the kind of person who, like we've established, sticks to what actually happened, not just jumping on an opportunity to go, oh, yeah, that's good. Let me throw that in the mix too. We missed the last clip as well, number 11. If we can go back to that, I'd like to just cover that really quickly if we can.
And what happened once that interim interdict was issued?
Well, it was served on her by sheriff officers.
What you've got there is, and I know because I used to do this at one point, you've got what's called a per serve. So there is no way that she can deny ever receiving that interdict. There is no way she can turn around and say, well, I never got the papers. I didn't get the envelope must have gone to an old address. It was never received by me. It's called a per serve because it's personally served, sometimes by someone like me, and in extreme instances, a sheriff. In Scotland, that is, by the way, not in England. And if the sheriff has gone round and personally served her with an interim interdict, then I promise you there is no way she could have not known about it. So she knew full well that there was an interim interdict in place, which means when she was on Piers Morgan's show and said, no, it's all nonsense, I've never had that, she knows full well that she has.
And there we have a definitive lie.
Definitely.
Not body language, not statement analysis, just facts of, no, you were served, it was noted, they have the paperwork. What I've learned through this series is it's been beneficial to cut up what we're doing in parts and giving you an opportunity to comment. Mm-hmm. I want to know what you think. I will tell you right now, I believe this woman. What I've seen so far, I find her to be one of the most believable people we've ever covered. I don't know where you are, Gavin. Do you find her credible or believable?
So far, with what she's said and her accounts of what's happened, I've found her kind of recalling everything accurately to the best of her knowledge and believable. I'm not saying that there aren't maybe one or two grey areas, and at the same time, does this apply to every area of her life? Who knows? But from what I've seen from the videos and what she said, everything looks reasonably truthful and honest to me.
All right. Well, so folks, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you find her believable? Also, what do you think of what we're saying? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What have we missed? Please let us know, and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you get a notification when the next one comes out, and we will address the rest of this as well as any comments that come through that look really interesting. So until next time.